Hands now. Uh, Terry Strada is the national co-chair of 9/11 Families United, and she's going to speak to us now.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Senators Menendez and Blumenthal, and thank you everyone for being here today. September 11th will mark the 20th anniversary of the murder of my husband Tom and nearly 3,000 people, all brutally slain on orders given by the known Saudi terrorist Osama bin Laden and his 19 mostly Saudi Islamist al-Qaeda terrorists when they infiltrated our country and carried out the deadliest terrorist attack in our nation's history. For reasons I do not know and I cannot fathom, a select group of FBI and CIA operatives knew some of the 19 hijackers were known terrorists traveling freely on American soil, using their real names. How much of their planning and plotting were they privy to? I do not know, but clearly the agencies did absolutely nothing to stop the attacks and failed at the most important job they had. They failed to protect America and her populace. Along with the entire world, I watched in horror our country under a violent attack. I witnessed on live television the toxic black smoke billowing from the North Tower. I spoke with my husband and heard firsthand the fear and panic he and my dear friends were experiencing in the hellfire that they were engulfed in. I watched the North Tower collapse, knowing the father of my 3 children and my husband's life was being extinguished right before my eyes. Now, 20 years later, the DOJ and FBI continue to protect the very country who produced 15 of the 19 hijackers, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Yes, we know the kingdom played a major role in supporting and financing al-Qaeda, and evidence demonstrates that Saudi agents who the kingdom sent here aided and abetted some, if not all, of the 19 hijackers leading into the attack. It is indisputable fact that the hijackers were living in our country 12 to 18 months prior to 9/11, planning and plotting the murder of thousands, and that the FBI and CIA knew of at least 2 of them, Nawaf al-Hamzi and Khalid al-Mihdhar. Rather than hold the kingdom accountable, the State Department, FBI, and CIA continue to betray the 9/11 community and cower to the kingdom's desperate pleas of keeping Saudi Arabia's involvement in murdering our loved ones a secret, while the Department of Justice ignores our pleas for the truth, instead choosing to help keep the kingdom's dirty little secret that they support radical Islamist terrorism and the hateful ideology that spawned the largest mass murder in our country's history and death of my husband and our children's father. For what? And I ask why. Every administration since 9/11 continues to turn their backs on us, the victims' family members and survivors. Why are we standing here today, adversaries to the FBI and Department of Justice, instead of allies? And perversely, why do they stand as allies to the kingdom against us? Critical documents are being held from public view because the DOJ refuses to release them in any format. In fact, in many cases, they refuse to even look at the documents responsive to the subpoena served on them in April of 2018. Instead, our government argues it would just be too much of a burden for them, for the most advanced country in the free world, to review documents it is supposed to be vigilant about retaining from one of the most important investigations the country has ever performed. Let me underscore that. We, the 9/11 community, we, the American public, are too burdensome in the eyes of the bureaucracy. We are asking too much for them to tell us what they uncovered in looking into the attacks on all of us. By keeping evidence hidden that will shed light on the brutal murder of our loved ones, our own government is not only perpetuating our continued pain and suffering, but it is also leaving the facilitators of the attacks unaccountable and our nation vulnerable to future terrorist attacks. This travesty of justice must come to an end in order for this chapter of our lives to close and keep Americans safe from the endless grief and gruesome carnage terrorist attacks leave behind. For 2 decades, Congress has shown a united front and been a staunch supporter for transparency regarding 9/11 and our quest for the truth. Many here today have walked beside us on our path of grief. They have worked hard for us and the American people by passing a resolution to release the 28 pages. Those pages offered us clear facts about the Saudis' involvement in 9/11. Congress also worked for 7 years on the Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act, JASTA, ultimately voting unanimously for its passage with unfettered enthusiasm, and then overriding a presidential veto to enact JASTA, cementing our right to our day in court and what we believed would ensure all the evidence would see the light of day. No one standing here today, no one standing in the Capitol behind us, has ever anticipated the level of pushback, the lack of respect, or the extent to which our State Department, the Department of Justice, and the FBI would go to withhold vital investigative reports from the 9/11 community and the nation at large, all in an effort to protect the kingdom from embarrassment and accountability. Attorney General Garland, Director of National Intelligence Haynes, FBI Director Wray, and the State Department, by ignoring our direct pleas to them, are showing us where their loyalty lies time and time again, with a foreign nation capable of murdering their own. Aside from the occasional disingenuous words to recognize our loss, by protecting the Saudis, they have not shown their allegiance to us or the American public. They have ignored numerous letters, not only from us, but from several members of Congress as well. We have never been met with such disdain. Not only have they snubbed our invitations to meet in person, the DOJ has fought vigorously to avoid producing mountains of documents responsive to the subpoena that was served on them 3 years ago. This legislation in the Congress, and I pray this administration, will right that wrong. While the DOJ claims it has distributed thousands of pages to our representatives, that claim falls patently short of what was requested. Instead of allowing the DOJ to continue cherry-picking what documents it wants to release and tolerating their indefensible excuse that it would be too burdensome to search their files, we now have the full force of the United States Senate, and we anticipate all of Congress supporting a full declassification review process of all relevant documents related to the Saudis and 9/11. As a tragic result of 9/11 and the war on terror, tomorrow will sadly mark the 10th anniversary of the deadliest incident and largest loss of life in the Navy's special warfare, when 30 American troops, including 16 commandos from Navy SEAL Team 6, call sign Extortion 16, helicopter was shot down, killing all on board. They were there fighting for all of us, rooting out the evil created by the kingdom that threatens our freedoms and our way of life. The truths we seek with the 9/11 Transparency Act is not just for us, but for all of our fallen heroes. May every brave warrior, rescue worker, and those who have died from 9/11 related illnesses rest in peace. We sincerely thank Senator Menendez, Senator Blumenthal, and the senators introducing the 9/11 Transparency Act, another great bipartisan effort from our esteemed leaders, and ask that the entire body of Congress act bravely and cohesively in support of our right to know what the government has uncovered about who facilitated the attacks on us 20 years ago. Yes, let us never forget, but let us never let it happen again. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Terry, and we admire you taking your personal tragedy and turning it into a powerful and just purpose. And finally, let me introduce Brett Eagleson. He is also the National Co-Chair of 9/11 Community United.
Senator Blumenthal, our hero. Senator Menendez, thank you so much, both of you. Senator Schumer, Cornyn, and Grassley. In a few short days, we will have administration officials, President Biden and others, mark the most devastating attack on American soil. And they will stand up and they will utter words, never forget. I'm here to tell you now, those words ring shallow to all the family members, because they stand up and utter words, never forget. But the administration, behind a cloak of secrecy, continues to stab us in the back. And this has happened administration after administration. it's a sad truth to know that the United States government values foreign interests more than its own citizens. And we should not be here today. We shouldn't be here pleading with the United States government to release documents. We should never have had to ask the United States Senate to get our backs, but they have our backs. But the administration doesn't listen. We're here today because administration after administration does not respect the will of the United States Congress. We have passed resolutions, we have written letters, we have held questioned attorney generals, FBI directors at hearings, and we can't even get as much of a response out of them. FBI Director Wray doesn't respect the United States Congress. Attorney General Garland, to present day, doesn't respect the United States Congress. They have an opportunity to do so. They have a historic opportunity to finally do the right thing that previous administrations before them failed to do, and that's stand with its American citizens before the interests of Saudi Arabia. I am a proud American. My family is a proud American. I wear this lapel because I love this country. But I wish my government would love us back. It is painful. It's very difficult to come to terms with as a patriotic family and as a person who loves this country, to know that your own government doesn't support you the way that we support this country. My brother joined the military after 9/11. He was sent on 2 tours of duty to Iraq. He won 2 Bronze Stars. My dad had every opportunity to get out of the buildings. We talked to him after both planes hit. He told us he was staying behind to help with the evacuation process. What more do these families need to give to our country before our government pays us some sort of respect? 20 years is far too long to go for anybody, for us especially, but for Americans in general, to go without knowing the truth. And it's nauseating, and it's painful, and it's difficult, but we are so proud to stand with our champions and our supporters, and I think we're close, and I think we're going to get there. And I have all the confidence in the world that we're finally going to cross the finish line, and on the 20th year anniversary, the families can finally get the closure that they deserve.
Thank you, Brad, and thank you and your family for their service and their sacrifice. And the government is comprised of 3 different levels of government. There is one that has your back, and we're going to make sure it happens. With that, we'll take a couple of questions. Jonathan.
If you talk to the White House at all, or just from the new administration, and try to get their support for the bill?
We will be in conversations with them, and it is our hope that they will be responsive. We're lining up support, because when an administration, regardless of who that administration sees a bipartisan effort headed at them, and after we did the same thing in JASTA, I think it often creates a light at the White House. So hopefully that light's going to get turned on. Yes, and then.
Following up on that question, I know you all sent a letter to Attorney General Garland earlier this year. Have you heard a response to that letter, and what have communications with him about this issue looked like?
I want to say, in fairness to Attorney General Garland, I've spoken to him publicly in his confirmation hearing. I have asked for Director Wray to answer these questions publicly in the last oversight hearing of the Judiciary Committee. We've heard nothing officially. I've spoken to Attorney General Garland privately. My hope and belief is that his heart and the President's are in the right place. They need to move these agencies to do the right thing. There is a bureaucratic blockage here that is unfounded, and the natural inclination of some of these agencies is hide it, conceal it, hold it secret, even if it's deserving to these families. And I just want to add one more point. We've said embarrassment to the Saudis is no excuse for refusing to conceal this information. Well, embarrassment to our own government, to our own intelligence or enforcement agencies, likewise, is no excuse. If they knew about this attack before it occurred or had some evidence it was going to occur, that is all the more reason, 20 years later, to make it known to the American people. And I've had conversations at the highest levels of our government, and I am very, very hopeful, as Brett Eagleson has said, that we are getting closer to that finish line, because I think they sense the moral imperative here.
Can you just say optimistically what your timetable is? Obviously, you're getting ready to break with the 20th anniversary. Are you hoping this can get to the floor by this fall, by the end of the year?
Well, we want to move as expeditiously as possible. Obviously, there's introduction today. We'll probably close out next week at some point. And so then I'm looking at September as a time both in the relevant committee to have a hearing if we need a hearing. And then I think Senator Blumenthal and I and our colleagues will be looking at every legislative vehicle, short of a separate introduction, standing debate, and vote. We would love that. But if not, we will look at any legislative vehicle to include this provision into law. Yes?
You have one Republican senator signed on to this right now.
Two.
Oh, you have two, I'm sorry.
Yes, Senator Grassley and Senator Cornyn so far.
What other conversations have you had with other Republicans in the Senate, and how receptive they are to this?
I've had a few conversations. I don't know, Senator Blumenthal. I know I've had a few. And I think we will get more bipartisan sponsors. Look, it's a simple proposition. Transparency, 20 years later, trumps everything. Pure and simple. Justice trumps everything. That is neither a Republican nor Democratic objective. It is an American objective. And so at the end of the day, I think we're going to get a lot of support, as we did for JASTA. JASTA passed, without one negative vote. I mean, that speaks volumes of what I think the Congress believes is necessary to stand up on behalf of the American people.
I will just add, I've had some conversations with Republican colleagues, and when I explain to them what's at stake here, they are immediately outraged, just as they were when past administrations failed to disclose this evidence. And I'll just be very blunt here. You know, in a month, our colleagues are going to come to the floor of the United States Senate, and they're going to make those same speeches that Brett described. President Biden will make speeches about never forget. Our colleagues will make the same speeches, and their words will ring hollow unless they support this measure. And these families are going to hold them accountable as well. So I predict we'll have the same kind of support here that we did on JASTA. Remember, we overrode President Obama's veto. Not by a little bit. The American people want justice for these families, but they also want to know the truth. The most heinous sin you can conduct in the eyes of the American people is to conceal truth that involves their national security. And this truth is vital to Americans' national security. So I predict we'll have a lot of Republicans on our side.
Yeah, and as a footnote tonight, JASTA didn't bring an end to the war or to the United States national security globally. So just proves the fact that opportunities like this for transparency and justice don't ultimately undermine America's interests. I think it makes us stronger. Last question.
So you bring up certain Republican lawmakers. We actually spoke with Senator Capito. She actually questioned what's the point of bringing up this legislation when it's 20 years out. What's your response to some of your colleagues who have said that because of how long it's been, is there really any more information to dig up?
Wow. Well, we'll have to talk to her. I respect Senator Capito, but we'll have to share and enlighten why it's 20 years later. 20 years later, the passage of time doesn't make the pain and suffering of these families less painful. The passage of time doesn't make the relevancy of making these documents public less consequential. The passage of time has only inured to the detriment of these families in terms of their search for justice as they pursue it in the courts, because they can't get documents that would make their case. The passage of time ultimately and I speak now as the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, we need to know who is our friend and who is our foe. We need to know, in fact, who may have participated in allowing these attackers, in aiding or abetting them. I want to know that, because in terms of foreign policy, I want to know what I'm dealing with in a country. And so, for a myriad of reasons, we can never accept, never, that 20 years means an end to this chapter. It doesn't. An end to this chapter comes with justice, and justice only comes with this information. Thank you all very much.
Yes, I do. Yes. I'm to the point now. If you had done your jobs, we wouldn't be here.
So I've heard your name
Same
before.
people that didn't do their jobs, but keeping
Yeah, yeah.
Let's start connecting those.
Yeah.